Did we do enough alternate nostril breathing? We're going to do about 5 or 6 more rounds on your own. And we're trying again. All right, right hand, close the left side of the nose. Inhale through the right side of the nose. Close the right side of the nose. Exhale through the left side of the nose. Stay to inhale. Switch to exhale. Stay to inhale. Switch to exhale. Taking a couple more rounds on your own. The next time you exhale out the left side of your nose, take your time and your breath cycle to get there. We'll let the hands rest onto the tops of the legs, breathing in through both sides of the nose. Picturing the breath move in through the nose, down toward heart center, expanding into the lungs, allowing rib cage to expand as you breathe in. And as you exhale, release the breath back up and out through the nose. Inhale through the nose, down into lungs, into rib cage. Exhales back up and out through the nose. Picturing the expansion into the lungs as you breathe in, feeling the body change shape as you do so. And exhales, release back up and out. Start to breathe deeper down into the navel. Exhales back up and out through the nose. Breathing down into navel. Exhaling back up and out through the nose. Couple more on your own. If you missed the intro before my connection got cut and we restarted, we're taking a yin practice, long holds, 2 to 4 minute holds, all on the floor, working with the lung meridians and grounding and stabilization of prana, of energy. If you'd like, setting an intention that coincides with this practice, or if you'd like to, setting something completely different, something that resonates with you right now. And bowing your head to your chest to seal in your intention. Blinking the eyes open, we'll take the head up. We'll come onto your back to begin. Our first pose will be a reclined crescent pose. So the pose we usually take standing, reaching up and over. We'll start to make that shape on the ground. Release all the way down, legs long down the length of the mat. Spine, shoulders, head all land. And from here, we'll move the left leg a little bit wider toward the left edge of your mat. Crossing right ankle over left ankle, or right foot crosses to the outside of the left foot. Shimvying the chest over to the left slightly as well, creating a long curve through the whole right side. We can take the arms into a goalpost shape, or left hand holds on to right wrist, helping to lengthen whole right side. If this is too much, we can return to our goalpost shape, wherever you are comfortable. And every pose is timed to make sure we're doing about the same amount of time on each side. Breathing up and down whole right side of the body as you would the spine, or the whole length if we were laying in Shavasana. Breathing into right chest, underside of right shoulder, outside of right arm. And know that your right hip may pick up off the floor a little bit, and the longer we stay, the more it might start to release to the floor. Noticing how this side feels the longer we stay. In yin, if you have not joined me for a yin practice before, the first shape we land in might not feel very challenging to the body, but the longer you stay, that slight appropriate stress in the physical body might start to creep in more than you would expect it to. So you're always welcome to ease out slightly if it becomes too much. If there's a question whether it may be too much or not, opt for the safer edge of that line. And gently coming out, take the right leg back so it's mostly symmetrical with the left. And we might feel very different. We don't have to look and make sure we're symmetrical. Just uncross back to the right side of the mat. Arms can come into a goalpost shape or down at the sides. And notice if there's a sense of warmth down the outside of the right leg, if there's any tingling, if there's any type of sensation. Simply be aware. And we'll switch to the other side. Take the right heel wide past the right edge of the mat. Cross the left ankle over the top of the right ankle, deepening the curve through whole left side. We can move the shoulders. We can move the upper portion of the torso off to the right as well, deepening even more. And perhaps right hand holds on to left wrist, taking the left arm up and over. Breathing through whole left side. This side may feel drastically different than the other side. It might feel very similar. Taking care to not judge either side, labeling them our good side or our bad side as we often do, but acknowledge that one side is simply different right now. And as you rest, notice if your mind wanders, if it's wandering back to something earlier today, try to keep its presence here, keeping it within your practice, whether you're going into a physical sensation or whether you're aware of what the breath is doing, seeing if we can keep that full expansion. Yin is much more about observing rather than doing. But even as you take your awareness to the breath, there's a natural tendency to take it into the spaces it might not have been going before. About 3 more breaths through this shape. And when you're ready, release the left leg back over toward the left edge of the mat, sometimes coming out of a pose. Feels a little more interesting than the longer we stayed. Finding some sense of symmetry on your mat again, arms in a goalpost shape or down at the sides. And find that full expansion of the breath again, knowing that especially our asymmetrical poses, we will have a tendency to hold the breath or perhaps not breathe as deeply to avoid that sensation or emotion that's coming up in our pose. Try to maintain the breath as best we can. Start to walk the feet back, and we'll come up briefly into a seat, grabbing something nearby. Now, I've just used my blanket as a curtain, unfortunately, but let's see what we've got here. We're going to either use a rolled up blanket, a rolled up towel, or if you have some sort of bolster, a rectangular bolster, or even a rectangular, honestly, a square one would probably work just as well for this as well. We're going to place the rolled up towel, rolled up blanket, an extra yoga mat, if you have one, just underneath the shoulder blades for this variation of our reclined butterfly. Taking the soles of the feet together with the knees releasing wide. We'll take the arms into a goal post shape. So we don't need a huge prop. This is probably even a little bit tall for me. I do have a very flexible spine, so I know this will not be too much for me personally, but do be careful that we're not forcing a curve that does not need or want to happen. So the elbows, the forearms, the hands should still be able to rest the floor. You're welcome to take blocks under the knees if you'd like, if the knees are releasing a bit too much for your liking or for your comfort. And we will rest here. Recline butterfly with an extra addition of our prop with our goalpost arms, working more into the long meridian, upper burner. And a main difference between yin and restorative, even though if someone just looked at a picture of this right here, they could think, oh, she's doing restorative yoga. I still feel quite a bit in my hips. I definitely feel a lot in my spine. And restorative, we would want to be propped entirely so everything is allowed to relax. And yin, we'd like to be propped enough so that we can find comfort in a long held pose that still has sensation. And if we cannot breathe fully, your prop may be too high. Again, the prop is not necessary. It's just an added bonus. Feel free to omit it. Observe the breath into the chest where we first took the breath in our opening seated breath observation. And observe the breath deep down into the navel, finding what changes depending on which shape you may be in. About 5 more breaths here. Make them your most relaxed. Now, please gently roll to one side so that we can come off of our prop if we have one. Taking it out from underneath you, sending it off to the side, and we'll release back onto our back for one set of twists before we come up into a seat. And notice if you had that prop underneath your shoulder blades, now that the whole back is sinking into the floor, we might feel how high that actually was, how much it did. Take the arms out to the sides into their goalpost or T-shape. And please press the feet to the floor, pick the hips up slightly and move them over to the right. Picking up the feet, we'll release knees to the left, coming into our reclined twist. Left arm can help anchor the outside of right knee. Right arm extends out again if you'd like T-shape or goalpost shape. Breathing into right hip, breathing into whole right side, right chest, right shoulder. And again, if you notice after the first few breaths, the longer we stay, the more intense what you're already feeling might start to get. So you are welcome to take blocks, perhaps in between the knees. Demonstrate on this side, or underneath the knees. If you find the legs are not releasing all the way to the floor, and they do not have to, but you'd like some sort of anchor, if the hips are working to stay at a certain height, hold them with the left hand or let them set onto a block or a pillow, a book, somewhere where they can land, still feeling something through the outside of the right hip and right leg. Removing any props from underneath your left knee, please roll all the way onto your left side. Left arm can make a pillow underneath the head, letting the shoulders join the hips, resting on your side. And roll back onto your back. Pointing the knees up toward the ceiling, we can let the knees knock in slightly, resting in symmetry onto your back. And we will switch sides. Press the feet to the floor, move the hips slightly over to the left side of the mat. Picking up the knees over hips, over navel, and release the knees to the right. Again, we can take some sort of a prop underneath the knees or between the knees if you'd like to. Arms stretched out to the side, either T-shape or goalpost shape. And we can turn the head to the left in the opposite direction that the knees are facing. Right arm could help anchor the legs. Breathing into left side, into left hip, left shoulder. About halfway through. Again, if you need to adjust to keep full capacity of the breath, feel free to adjust. Pressing the right part in. Roll onto your right side. We're going to come onto our side to come out. More gentle option for the low back instead of bringing the knees right back up. Bottom arm can make a pillow, resting hips stacking, shoulders stacking. And roll back onto your back. Knees pointing up. Again, we can let the knees knock in just briefly. And we'll hug the knees up into the chest. Gently make your way up into diamond pose or star pose. Same shape in the legs we had in reclined butterfly. Soles of the feet together. Again, if you'd like, we can take blocks underneath the knees, or the knees might feel comfortable in a seat, whereas they did not reclined. Sitting tall, folding forwards, allowing the navel to move forwards first. So we're taking the hinge from the hip joints and not just rounding through the spine. You're welcome to take elbows onto a pillow or a block, some sort of prop that helps release a bit of the weight from the upper body. And again, knowing where the mind tends to wander, noticing if it is, not judging whether it is or not, simply bringing it back to something within your practice if it has. With your next inhale, sitting back up. From here, we'll cross the legs, taking a bit of movement with the arms, the chest, and the shoulders. Yin does not always have movement in it, depending on what style you're practicing. The original, the creator, Polly Zink, actually had a lot of movement, believe it or not. This is something from him, also something you'll find in a Kundalini practice. We're going to take the fingertips together. I'll go ahead and turn sideways. You stay wherever you'd like to be on your mat. Take the fingertips together and let them touch in at the sternum. As you inhale, start to open the shoulders, Once the shoulders reach their most open point, open the elbows. Once the elbows reach their most open point, start to pull back through the wrists and then through the fingers. Less robotic now that we know what we're doing. Exhale, bring the fingertips into the sternum. Inhale, open shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands, and fingers. Exhale, back to sternum. Inhale, open outwards. Exhale, back to the sternum. 3 more on your own. After the third or next one, rest with your hands back onto the tops of the legs, connecting back to your intention. And blinking the eyes open, we'll come into a tall, wide-legged seat. So please spin on your mat if you'd like to. If you're on carpet, your heels already have a cushion. If you've got your mat on a hardwood floor, make sure we are as comfortable as we can be. We can always sit into a seat for any fold. Perhaps sitting onto a cushion if you have it, said towel or blanket. Hands behind the hips to lift tall. And we'll fold forwards just as we did for our diamond pose. Again, whoop, got random stuff falling. Hands can move out in front to help prevent you from folding much farther. You're welcome to walk the hands farther to help pull yourself forwards or push slightly to prevent. And the longer we stay, again, the more intense it may start to feel. Adjusting if you need to. I'm going to check a message on the screen real quick. After your next exhale, go ahead and start to sit back up. And for our next pose, taking half dragonfly, I'm going to come off my cushion. You're welcome to stay on yours if it's a bit more flat. We'll take the left foot inside your right thigh, twisting briefly to open the chest, open the left shoulder, sitting tall through whole spine. And as you twist into this shape, really expand the breath into the left side. All sides, of course, but left side is where it might start to get shortchanged. This is where we might feel most of the stretch, most of the sensation in left chest and left side body. Turn your head toward right foot. We can slide the right arm on or inside the leg, reaching down toward the inside of the right arch. If you'd like, we can prop the arm on the leg onto a different prop, maybe even a pillow over the top of the leg. We can prop right hand into the head to help keep it supported, and extend left arm over if it feels okay to do so. If it does not, feel free to drape the arm behind the back instead. On your next inhale, slowly start to rebuild. This is one of those shapes that you could feel more coming out rather than when you were staying in. I find that with a lot, but especially side seam, kidney, adrenal area. Sit tall for a moment here before we switch the legs and just work on rebalancing through the spine, lifting the right side a little bit, letting the left side relax back in, decompress, rebounding. And we'll switch sides. Bring the right foot in, take the left leg out. We'll add our twist first. Left hand to the right knee, sitting tall, open the right shoulder back. Breathing into right side, right chest, noticing the spaces the breath tends to avoid. And turning the head to the left. We can bring the left arm down inside the leg, onto a prop, maybe onto a pillow or cushion, reaching the left arm down and taking right arm up and over. Again, if this is not comfortable, we can drape the right arm behind the back. For me personally, my right side, I tend to feel a whole lot more than I do in my left. Maybe that's true for you too. Again, we do not have to feel even through both sides. Both sides will feel different. We are asymmetrical beings with asymmetrical activities. Take this side as it is. again, if something becomes uncomfortable and you're unsure if it's going to feel okay later, feel free to modify the shape you're in. And on your inhale, sitting back up. Again, taking your time to do so. Once we do sit tall, rest there for a moment. Allow the sides to balance out, rebounding from our shape. The time after a yin pose is considered maybe even more important than the time we spend in it. Go ahead and take both legs straight out in front of you. And my feet may be cut off in this screen, I'm not sure, but if you'd like to spin sideways on your mat, but I'm going to stay right here facing you. Hands behind the hips to lift tall, gently starting to lean forwards, folding forwards. This is another shape where you may take a pillow across your lap, maybe a block if you have it, finding slight comfort, slight rest as you are here, but we should still feel a sensation through the backs of the legs, maybe the spaces around the spine, moving up the back of the body. And we can always rest into the hands, head into the hands, so that the neck doesn't have to hold your head up. If you'd like, we can reach for the feet, but do allow most of this to come from the weight of the torso folding forwards and not a pull or a grasping action. Soft hold is perfectly fine. On your inhale, lifting back up, we can set any props to the side. And we'll come into shoelace pose. This has been a favorite recently, but as we're all maybe sinking into the couch a little bit more than we usually are, or if we're able to get outside a little more than we are, hips tend to be an area of tightness when they're thrown into situations and shapes they're not necessarily familiar with. So please take the left leg onto the floor, left shin toward parallel with the front of the mat, and then start to pull the heel underneath your right hip. Cross the right leg over the top of the left, starting to adjust where the feet are, adjust where the knees are. Knees may stack, and if this is not a comfortable shape for you, fire log is also fairly close, works the same meridians, same areas, same tissues, or if you'd like, we can take figure 4. Or half shoelace, just the leg crossed on top, finding your preferred variation. We can sit tall here. We can hold on to the ankles. If you feel like your right leg is about to fling off of the left knee, go ahead and hold on to the shins or ankles, shoulders soft. Staying tall or folding forwards. Resting here for about 5 more breaths. And when you're ready, please go ahead and sit back up, uncrossing the legs so that they're just a bit more loose in shape, resting here for a moment, letting this be our rebound shape. And switch sides. So whichever variation you took, I would recommend that you take close to the same variation. Maybe we're taking half shoelace on one side and full shoelace on the other, or figure 4 or fire log. Try to achieve the same angle in at least the top leg, even if we have a different shape with the bottom leg. Adjusting so you are ready. You are comfortable enough against light sensation, but never pain, never something you could not breathe through or relax everything else through. Holding on to ankles or shins if you need to. We can stay tall or begin to fold forwards. Observing what comes up as you rest. Again, noticing where the mind wanders. If it's in a comfortable, productive dreamland, and by productive, I don't mean any lists. I mean, if it's sitting with your intention or musing, feel free to let it stay there. But if it's going into uncharted territory or all too familiar territory, consider bringing it back with your intention, breath, or physical awareness. Please lift back up. Gently lift the spine, uncross the legs so they are more loose, less tension, less sensation. Rest here for a moment. And please make your way into a Sphinx pose or seal pose. Your choice of variation coming on to elbows and forearms. Or if you'd prefer yin, usually we would take seal or swan pose, lifting up, elbows away from the floor, arms straight, allowing the chest to reach through. So we're not pressing into the ground to lift the shoulders, lifting the chest as high as you can, but almost creating a tent pole type action with the arms, and the chest starts to melt forwards between the shoulders, increasing our back bend. And if this is uncomfortable in the lower spine in any part, if it makes you dizzy, if it feels crunchy, feel free to stay onto forearms instead. It is a similar shape, maybe modifying our usual Sphinx to have the elbows in front once again. Chest is allowed to drop through. We are allowed to hang into the shoulder joints as long as they're not to the jaw, but behind the ears. Collarbones still open. And when you're ready, release the chest back to the floor. Stack the hands, stack the forearms. Allow the forehead to rest. As you inhale, feel the navel expand into the floor. Feeling every point of the body land into the floor. Feeling stable, feeling supported, grounded, held. And when you're ready, please take the hands around the rib cage and come into either wide-legged child's pose or frog pose. If frog is one of those poses you have not a whole lot of experience or practice with, this is the last pose before we will come to Shavasana. If it's going to be intense and heating and perhaps a little anxiety inducing, I would suggest taking wide-legged child's pose. But I know there are a couple of you that love it, so if you want it, go ahead. Wide-legged child's pose, knees will still be around the rib cage. For frog pose, knees will be in line with the hips, with the feet back behind, like a goddess pose, but facing the floor. Either option, you're welcome to also place a pillow underneath the inside of your legs so that they do not release as much. Your preferred symmetrical shape. You're welcome to stack the hands and forearms underneath the head again if straight forwards is not comfortable for the neck or the shoulders. And once again, exhale into the spaces that land into the floor. Observing compression of the body landing into itself, hamstrings to calves, shins to ground, torso to legs, arms to floor. Gently make your way onto your back, facing the feet in the direction you'd like them to be for Shavasana. We will come into our preferred resting shape now. If you'd like to grab any additional props, if you'd like to grab any blankets, any more clothing, if your arms are getting chilly, any socks, release when you are ready. Add on any additional poses as you need due to our connection glitch in the beginning. don't have as much time as I wanted for Shavasana. We only have 15 minutes, but that's an only. Rest when you are comfortable. And please observe the breath at the very center of the chest, breathing below the collarbones, below the tops of the shoulders. Without controlling the shape, the speed, or the length of the breath, please simply start to observe the breath that is already there, without judgment, without change. No modification necessary, just breathing as you are. It does not have to be an exaggerated aspect of the breath. It could feel more shallow, and that's okay. Single point of breath. Single point of awareness at heart center. Seeing an orange spiral glow at heart center. The extensions of this spiral shooting off gently like flames out into whole physical body, into energetic body, energizing, giving life to the breath, to our expansion of energy, of communication, of action, feeling open, allowing yourself to take up space. Picturing this orange spiral of light from heart center throughout whole body, past the edges. Continue to be aware of this energetic orange spiral glowing throughout whole body, past the edges of the physical body. Return to your intention, repeating it in the mind, placing it at heart center. Gently start to expand awareness and breath back out into the limbs toward hands and feet. Start to move the fingers and the toes. Bend the ankles and wrists. Rock the head from side to side. Bend the elbows. Begin to walk the feet back to hug the knees to the chest. Rolling on to one side for a few breaths. Pressing the hands into the floor, coming up to a tall seat. Resting comfortably if you'd like, you're welcome to elevate the hips again. Hands resting onto the tops of the legs. Feeling where ankles, where the outside seam of the legs ground to the floor. Take a brief seated meditation to close. Feeling where the body lands. Picturing a blue inverted triangle. The lines with the hip points and the tailbone and the lower portion of the abdomen and the pelvis. As you exhale, feel the breath move down to the point of this triangle and into the floor. Releasing anything that does not support the intention you had set. Into the ground, into the earth, toward the very core of the earth. Inhale into this expansive sensation at heart center. Exhale what we do not need to take with us into the floor, into the earth. Inhale expansion at heart center. Exhale to release and ground. Keeping this expansive expression with you. And at the same time, keeping this grounded and stable feeling with you. Finding joy. Finding time to move. Yet time to rest as well. Noticing the breath. Noticing the mind, what they do depending on what's going on, what we're presented with or what we choose to do with our time, our energy. Take this intention and practice with you. Please bring hands together at heart center, bowing your head to your chest, acknowledging your breath, your peace, and all that you are. Namaste. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about our slight connectivity in the beginning. If you joined in about 5 minutes late, you didn't even know there was a thing. Hi, guys. Thanks for practicing with me today. If you'd like to see more videos, if you'd perhaps like to see more of Miko's arm being shoved under the door, I'll link a couple right here. I'll link my page. I'll link the most recent series or video. And subscribe if you'd like to let yourself know when I put out a new video. What do you think, Miko? Do you think that's a good idea? I think that's a good idea.